It's my pleasure now to invite Harold Lee, Deputy Director at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to give us, following on actually from what Vanessa very helpfully introduced, the Singaporean program and ideas about technical cooperation and capacity building. So, Harold.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency Lord Tuivasa-Kano, Prime Minister of Tonga, Excellencies, distinguished speakers and guests. I'd like to thank Director of the UNDP Global Centre for Public Service, Excellence Max Everest Phillips, for the kind introduction and the invitation to share about the Singapore Cooperation Programme, or SCP in short. With your indulgence, I will commence with a 2-minute video on the SCP, followed by a brief presentation.
You showed us what it means to be a friend. In our time of need, you were there to help us grow. And as we grew, we learned to give back to our region and the world.
We believe that all of mankind will benefit if all nations link themselves together in a continuous series of helping hands.
We believe in building up people because people make a difference. We are part of ASEAN. We grow together with our neighbors.
Together, if we can really be integrated, we will be strong.
We reach out to the world to build connections, sharing what we learned and helping where we can make the most impact. In a world that does not stand still, we keep pace with changing needs. Though we started small, we've come a long way. Over the past 20 years, we've had many conversations, exchanging ideas and innovations, studying problems and solutions together. And today, with over 170 countries as our friends, we remain committed to share.
We established the Singapore Cooperation Programme, or SCP, in 1992, when Singapore reached a certain level of development and wanted to give something back to the international community. From the onset, we decided that financial aid or financing infrastructure projects was not the way we would go. We understood from our own experience that technical assistance is equally or more effective in creating the right conditions for growth. We benefited from the assistance and goodwill of others in the past, and human resource development was vital for our social and economic progress. The philosophy behind the SCP is threefold. Firstly, giving back to the international community is the right thing to do. We believe that everyone has a right to social and economic development. We share our development experiences through courses, workshops, and study visits in a wide range of fields, and we provide a small number of undergraduate and postgraduate scholarships. We share our successes as well as mistakes we have made along the way. Over the past 2 decades, we have trained over 90,000 government officials from 170 countries. Secondly, helping other countries helps Singapore. As a small state, Singapore benefits when countries all over the world are well equipped to deal with challenges like financial crisis, terrorism, and pandemics. A good part of the SCP is aimed at strengthening ASEAN. An ASEAN that is economically integrated, strong, and coherent can better attract investments, create jobs, manage regional challenges, and be a platform to engage larger powers. In particular, we have provided significant technical assistance to Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar and Vietnam through the Initiative for ASEAN Integration, or IAI. We hope that our assistance to these countries can help strengthen ASEAN and foster greater integration within the ASEAN community. Under the IAI, Singapore has trained more than 27,000 officials through programs specifically aligned to the development needs of the 4 countries, including programs on trade liberalization and customs management to support ASEAN community building. We have set up training centers in Phnom Penh, Vientiane, Yangon and Hanoi so that we can reach out to more government officials from the newer ASEAN countries. We consult regularly with the host governments and seek feedback from participants to ensure that the causes address their needs. Thirdly, the SCP helps Singapore build friendships. Many countries appreciate Singapore's consistent support in training and technical assistance. This earns us goodwill and trust. For a small country like us, it is important to have this international network of friends. It puts us in a better position to defend our interests at the United Nations and at other international organizations. We conduct courses in a wide variety of training areas. The SCP is executed in close collaboration with more than 60 Singapore training agencies, which cover a broad spectrum of competencies and specialized knowledge. We also work with over 40 third country training program or TCTP partners to provide joint technical assistance. The TCTP framework allows us to put together our expertise and resources to meet the needs of other countries. Partner countries include the US, Norway, Germany, France, Korea, and Japan, while partner organizations include various UN agencies, the Asian Development Bank, WTO, and IMF. We conduct courses in areas where Singapore has some development experience and expertise which we can share. We regularly review our courses to ensure that they remain relevant to the development needs of other countries. Through our courses, we hope that participants will be able to develop their professional networks, exchange ideas, and ultimately bring some valuable lessons back to their country which they can adopt or adapt to meet their specific needs. We have also been actively engaging other regions to better understand their development needs. In August 2012, we welcomed ministers from 11 Pacific Island states to Singapore to participate in the first Singapore-Pacific Ministerial Study visit. The ministers and delegates were briefed on Singapore's development experiences in areas such as economic development, education, healthcare, the civil service, and national development. Subsequently, in July 2013, we hosted ministers and officials from 10 Caribbean countries for the inaugural high-level Singapore-CARICOM Ministerial Exchange visit. The ministers and officials were briefed on various ministries and government agencies on Singapore's policies in economic development, aviation and maritime management, urban development, water supply and waste management. We also pledged to enhance our collaboration with our friends in the Caribbean with an enhanced technical cooperation package, and we are currently working with the CARICOM Secretariat to jointly conduct the pilot training courses. In August this year, we'll be hosting a group of ministers from sub-Saharan Africa on a high-level ministerial exchange visit. Singapore has also been sharing our policy experiences with SIDS through the SCP. We launched the SIDS Technical Cooperation Program at the UN General Assembly's 22nd Special Session in 1999 to provide technical assistance to small island states like Singapore, which face similar challenges. Over the years, we have trained over 8,700 officials from SIDS in areas such as civil aviation, public administration, economic development, water management, and environment protection. In 2012, we introduced a new cluster of SCP courses to cover Singapore's approach on issues related to climate change and how we preserve our environment and promote sustainable urban development. We also developed a sustainable development and climate change program aimed at sharing our experience on sustainable cities, as well as adaptation and resilience to climate change with our SIDS friends and other developing countries facing the same challenges. We plan to announce a technical assistance package for SIDS at the 3rd International Conference for SIDS in September 2014. Preliminarily, based on feedback we have received from SIDS and at development conferences, the package could cover customized training courses and study visits in civil aviation and port management, disaster management and emergency preparedness, and sustainable urban development. We have limited resources and cannot meet all requests for assistance. At the same time, we want to do more and can do more. Going forward, we will do so by providing smarter assistance. For example, we will concentrate our efforts in areas where we can make the greatest positive impact, use feedback to improve existing programs to customize new programs, and develop new courses and new capabilities, experiment with new tools, and leverage on existing partnerships to enhance training programs. This brings me to the end of the presentation. I'll be happy to take a few questions.
Obviously, UNDPC Singapore is a key partner in terms of this work as well, and so obviously we'd very much like to explore with you how, in terms of the package for the SIDS conference, we can look at how we can perhaps work with you to develop some sort of trilateral partnerships, maybe through the center here in Singapore, in terms of that. So that's just a comment. But I guess as a development organization that also spends a lot of time on capacity building, we have to constantly challenge ourselves in terms of what's the impact. Where's the sort of transformational change? And I mean, the numbers, of course, of people that you've trained are hugely impressive. But can you share with us a little bit maybe how you try to actually quantify the impact that your training has had? Because it's all very well bringing people to Singapore and training them in aviation management, but how has that impacted, for example, the management of the airport in Tonga? Do you have a system whereby you can really get some sort of quite detailed information in terms of the impact of your training? Thanks.
Being a Singaporean, can I be more provocative than that? Why do you prefer to be in the yellow box in terms of your policy governing instead of an open box, open innovation? Historical baggage is not always a good citation as reference for alibi. Secondly, with regard to what your senior was saying, we tend to have very narrow-mindedness in terms of policy making. It takes a long time before the government decided to go on design thinking, whereas you see Duncan was talking about adaptive thinking, but we in the business world are working on a target thinking. Well, you see, all are different completely, different in magnitude and everything like that. But I am surprised that looking at the paper that Max presented, in one of the concluding part, he says about embarrassment. And Singapore is allergic toward embarrassment. Why do the foreign ministry is not looking at a new perspective of connecting problems to solution? Thank you.
First, to address the comment on trilateral cooperation, we'll be happy to work with UNDP. We have been working with other partners like Japan through JICA to run courses for SIDS, so we'll be happy to work with other potential partners. Quantifying impact, at least for the SCP, what we do is we heavily rely on the feedback provided by participants and through the meetings at the leaders level to understand whether some of the training we have provided has some impact in the country. We do not provide financial aid or finance infrastructure projects. So really through training, we hope to develop human resource and it is really very hard to quantify whether the skills that you have obtained, whether it's really useful at the end of the day or whether it has a major impact. Some things are tangible, some things are less quantifiable. Connecting problems and solutions. At the end of the day, there are so many development needs out there and the SCP has limited resources. So what we try to do is on our own, we know that there are certain needs out there. We organize training courses and study visits to address some of these needs. Bilaterally with other countries, we receive requests, and we know that these are requests raised at the leadership level, and we will do our best to meet most of them. We can't meet requests, again, like I say, for financial aid or to finance infrastructure projects, but we will do our best to provide training. I can give you some examples. Recently, last year for the Commonwealth meeting in Sri Lanka, I think there was a request for hardware from Sri Lanka to Singapore, but what we could do to help them in a more impactful way was to train some of their officers in protocol training, in conference management, and at the end of the day, the feedback that we received from the leaders was that this was very useful, and at the end of the day, we can only do what we can to help some of these countries.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? No. Okay, Harold, thank you very much indeed. Please, congratulations on the usual.